Hello, noisemakers everywhere. You have found the Somberamarath podcast. Now, for the last couple of episodes, literally the last couple of episodes, I've been sort of focusing on the idea of getting started with the plan of moving forward towards the future, towards what comes next. However, given the situation that we find ourselves in the world, I thought that we could maybe deviate from that plan for an episode or two and bring maybe some joy or fun into the world. And at the same time, allow myself to introduce me to you through music, specifically through albums. Introduce myself as a fan of music. And then also introduce you to myself as a producer. And maybe we'll do an episode where we do something similar to what I'm planning to do here. And introduce myself as a musician and so forth. But what I wanted to do today is something a little more fun, something a little more relatable, something more enjoyable, and more connective, more communal. So what the plan is for today is that I'm going to give you a list of not just my top albums, but also a list of my top albums with my life partner, with my future wife, and also her top albums. We sat down a couple days ago and had nothing better to do. We were trapped inside. We're having to ride this thing out just like everyone else. And we decided to start discussing our top albums, not albums that we praise, albums that are technically fantastic, that are, huge in terms of, these greatest albums of all time, but really albums that meant something to us, albums that we continue to play to this day and that still resonate with us. So we came up with 3 lists. A list for myself, a list for her, and a list for us as a couple. And all 3 lists are a little bit different. So I thought we'd do a little bit of that to kick off. But I also want to take care of you, right? I want to make sure that you're getting some value for your own endeavors out of this. So along with this, on the tail end of this episode, I also want to talk to you about my top free plugins that I actually use, plugins that are free and I actually use on a regular basis. Some of them get used on this podcast. So that's the plan for today. And with none other to do, nothing else to kick off, let's get started. I want to give you first, because it's the simplest of the list, our top albums as a couple. So we sat down after we did our 2 lists for us individually, and then we actually started talking about what are the top albums in our relationship. What are the albums we keep playing when we're together? And we came up with this particular list. Coming in at number 10 is an album that was on both of our lists, not necessarily in our top, but was on both of our lists of albums that we were considering for a top 10. And that's a Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. And I think that Hybrid Theory is on this list for us because this is an album that meant a lot to us in our youth. We're both about the same age. We're about 4 years apart. And, this album came out at a pivotal time for us. And Linkin Park's first couple of albums are albums that I continually go back to, and so does she. She goes back to these albums quite a bit, but specifically Hybrid Theory. The songs on there they're all memorable, they're fantastic songs, and they meant a lot to us in that time, probably for various different reasons. I know that for myself, a lot of the angst that I felt vindicated. I felt, that I wasn't alone. But the grooves, the riffs, the way that they include a DJ. I've always had a hard time with bands with DJs in them. I always find that like the DJ gets kind of cut out. There's not much for the DJ to do, but Linkin Park completely revolutionized that. They really brought in their DJ as an essential part of that band and of that band's sound. So number 10, Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. At number 9, we have an album that's on neither one of our lists, but when we're together, we listen to this band a lot. And that's Chevelle's Wonder What's Next. And I think with this, it goes back to that same idea. It's the power of the music. It's the grooves. It's the fact that the songs are memorable. It's a powerful album, and it speaks a lot to frustrations. Overall, it's just a great album, and we enjoy hearing it as a couple. It's one of those albums you throw on when you're in the car and you're taking a road trip, and you don't get sick of it. It's a great album through and through. So number 8 is Dookie by Green Day. And of course it's Dookie by Green Day because we're from California. And arguably Green Day's Dookie, Green Day's Dookie is one of their most memorable albums, aside from some of the more known albums from their later career. But in their early career, this was the album. And for a long time, this was the album. You try to introduce someone to Green Day, it was Dookie. And again, we have these fantastic songs that are just timeless, and they work no matter what era of your life you're in, and they all kind of resonate these universal themes that people tend to feel over and over again during their lifetime. And the songs are fun. I mean, for instance, there's obviously the hits, but I absolutely love She. It's one of my favorite songs in the world, and I wouldn't even say that Green Day is one of my favorite bands, but this album is awesome. I can put it on and I can go front to back and not get sick of it, and sometimes I even go front to back and then hit it again and listen to it one more time. And again, it's one of those albums we like to put on when we take road trips. So moving on, let's go to number 9. Number 9 is an album that means a lot to both of us individually and as a couple. And I think I personally found more value in this album in our relationship. And that's Incubus's Morning View. Morning View is such a great song. It's such a great song, such a great album. It's one of those albums that, for me personally, it puts me in a calm kind of state of mind. It really kind of feeds my soul in a positive way. But again, Incubus has always had that sort of vibe, even when they're playing their more aggressive tunes. There's still these good vibes. Like it's at the heart of their music. You really kind of feel their intention of, people having a good time with themselves, like really growing as people. It's these positive vibes for a better life. Essentially, you can feel that that's sort of what their aim is, to make sure that people are sort of growing as human beings, reflecting, and it's all in a positive sense. It's hard to explain, but I hope you understand sort of what I'm getting at with that album. And it's in everything. It's in the tone. It's in the way it's sung. It's in the lyrics. There's just this sort of reflection on humanity, on yourself as an individual, but it's all from a very positive angle, even when it's sort of it's done in this sort of not desperate or despair, but when it's heavy topics. I think that's the word I'm sort of looking for. So that's a great album, and again, it's one that we play a lot. At number 6, this is an album that means the world to us both. And I think it goes back to the same thing with Linkin Park, but in a very different way. And also, it's a local band. And so, of course, we're going to be into them. And that's Americana by The Offspring. Americana was the first album that Denise, my life partner, my future wife, bought herself. It was actually one of the first albums that I bought myself as well. My first album was Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem. But this was an album that's sort of at the beginning of both of our both of our journey in being music fans. And again, it's a lot of these songs that deal with topics that you're going to deal with over and over again. But the beauty of this album is that it kind of hits it from all these different angles. You get songs that are super serious, like Stare at the Sun. And then you get songs that are super fun towards the end of the album, like Why Don't You Get a Job? And I hope that I'm not remembering the name of that song wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the title of the song. And so it's this great album that, you know, you get a variety of things. You get like the speed of punk. You get these more reggae kind of ska feel songs. You get these more trippy songs. You get heavy. You get lighter. And it's a great album, front to back. It's enjoyable. It's entertaining. It's it means something. It's important, and it's universal. And again, timeless songs that just kind of don't go out of style. Moving on to number 5, we have an album. And again, this is something that it's more she introduced me into it, even though I was already aware of it, but it's become more significant for me in our relationship. And that's With Teeth by 9 Inch Nails. Now, I understand that 9 Inch Nails has been around forever, and With Teeth is a more recent album, but bear with me. We actually got to see 9 Inch Nails perform twice, once at the Staples Center and once at what used to be the Irvine Meadows. I believe it had a different name at the time that we saw them, but that's what I remember it being because it was called that for a long time. And they absolutely blew me away. I'd always enjoyed their music, in a very casual manner, but I'd never paid enough attention to them until, we were leading up into going to see them live. She wanted to see them live. And the live show is amazing. If you ever get a chance, go see 9 Inch Nails live. It is amazing. It is a complete show. I'm going to intervene on myself here for a second as well and say that if you ever get a chance, go see The Offspring live, because the albums are good, but them live is way better. It is amazing how good they are. But yes, 9 Inch Nails With Teeth. This album is what introduced me to listening to 9 Inch Nails, not just casually, but really digging in. And, the songs on here are just, they're so good. They're so powerful. And funny enough that I should say this for a musician that makes music out of digitation, but they're so raw. And again, with a lot of the stuff that's on this list, it goes back to these universal themes. It goes back to exploring these feelings in a very detailed way, and in a way that kind of brings you out of it feeling better about these situations. So With Teeth. Let's see, moving on to number 4. Again, another California band, because we are Californians. I'm sorry I moved away from the mic. You might have sensed that proximity effect there. I'm a little excited about this one. And that, again, because they're local. They're local and they're Californian, but that's it's got to be Californication, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Why? Because yes, it's an amazing album. It's got great songs. It's got all these hits on it, and just everything from the tone to the vibes to the power. This is a band that isn't exactly known for being heavy, but God, does their music hit hard. And this album is so good. It hits you right in the chest, but it's enjoyable. It's this heaviness that's also groovy and funky. And, of course, a lot has been said about Anthony Kiedis and his lyrics, but in all that chaos and weirdness, there is some real stuff being said. And there's some serious stuff in this album, and it comes from a real place, and you can feel that it comes from a real place. And if you've ever gone through, some rough times in your life, this is the kind of music that kind of heals your soul. And so, what else can I say about Californication? It hits it on every angle, from the tone of the music, the composition, the lyrics, the sound, the vibes, everything about this album is fantastic. And I wish to see them live at some point. Moving on from Californication onto our top 3. This album absolutely means everything to us. It's one of the first things that we sort of, well, at least I remember sort of bonding over and being surprised that we were both into it. But it's one of those influential bands that it's going to go down in history. They're going to be referenced by everyone because, of course, they are. And I mean, there's nothing more that can be said. It's just, they were on the quest to essentially make a perfect representation in recording of them playing live, or at least that's what I've been told. Those were the stories I've been told about this album. It's Relationship of Command by At the Drive-In. And we absolutely love At the Drive-In, but this album we adore. We listened to it in our in the early years of our relationship over and over and over, like on every date it was in the car. And we love all the songs, not just the hits, but like everything about this album. Yes, it's punk, and it's punk at its purest, and it's punk at its most artistic, and it's punk at its, at the height of its potential. But it's also a whole bunch of other things, and it all these elements. There's the electronic elements, and then there's the, again, kind of like with Anthony Kiedis and his lyrics, the cryptic nature of the lyrics. But of course, Omar and I'm forgetting his first name, but Bixler Savala, they do such a fantastic job as a team. And of course, Mars Volta is a great example of that. But of course, the other guys in the band, Tim Ward, and so on, they're so great at crafting these songs and the lyrics in the songs and the beats and just everything. It's pure raw power. It's huge. It attacks you from all sides, and it gives you material for days to try to explore and dig into and sink your teeth in, and you obsess over it. But even if you don't, they're so groovy, they're so dynamic. It's such a great album, but it sticks with you. It's an experience, and that's what's great about this album, and I absolutely love it, and we love it together, and we wish that we could see this band live, but we just haven't yet. So that was number 3. At number 2, we have another Los Angeles band, another California band. I know, this is sort of the California list. I didn't realize until I started reading this to you guys that this is very California-centric. I apologize. Maybe we have that much awesome music out here, or maybe we're just that California-centric in our mind and in our taste. But here we go again. Another band that's going to go down, forever in history, and they're going to be mentioned forever in terms of influence. And an album that kind of means everything to us politically, because it's sort of an ideal to strive for, and the ideas resonate with us in our lives so much, and they keep coming up over and over again. It's almost prophetic in a way. It's art in its truest sense, in the fact that it's universal and it keeps coming up because it's part of the human experience. And that's Evil Empire by obviously the great Rage Against the Machine. And here's another band that we wish that we got a chance to see live. We've had the chance to see Tom Morello play live, which was awesome. And that was with Prophets of Rage. But we haven't had the chance to see these guys live. But this album was on, on every date we had it as well. It was one of those albums that was on rotation, and just every song. And and we get hype over every song and the message, and we're always, talking about the specifics of the lyrics, and we're talking about the amazingness of the production, whether it be together or with, our friends and family and whatnot. We're talking about Tom Morello's guitar, and we're talking about Zach De La Rocha's delivery, and we're talking about, the way the beats just smash, and we're talking about the bass lines, and we're just talking about everything. We're always talking about this album. It's huge for us. And, it's one of those albums that, it has this huge message. It's very important what's being put across, but it's also really enjoyable, and you can feel the funk in there, and you can feel the rage, and you can feel the aggression and the power, and it just front to back. You could play this album forever and you never get sick of it. But at number 1, and again, another technically LA band, and also another very political band, a band that we've gotten to see once as a couple at the Rose Bowl, and that's Toxicity by System of a Down. That's our number 1 album. Again, this is on rotation over and over again in the car. We absolutely love this record. What is there to say about it? It came out at the right time. It was an important record. It's still an important record. The message is still important. It may be even more important now than it ever has been in the past. The people involved in this record are, these mythical figures at this point. And they're incredibly intelligent people, and they're people that want to do good in the world. We got to meet Serj Tankian at an exhibit for his art, and he's such a great person, so easy to talk to, so open and willing to give of himself. It was great to meet him. But this album is just what else can you say? Musically, it's fantastic. It's got all these elements. It's vibrant. It's different. Obviously the Armenian influences that come into the music make it dynamic and amazing and give it different vibes. But the power, the drumming is fantastic. John's drumming is just so good. It's just impossible good. But and then there's Darren's guitar, and it's just like everything he does on guitar is magic. And it's so good. There's no way around it. And Serj's delivery and his ability to manipulate his voice. And then there's the lyrics. Then there's all the important stuff. There's everything that you need to hear, especially in times like this when, government systems can't be trusted and they're incompetent and they're attempting to rob us of some of the most important, safety nets that we've come to appreciate, and some of the most important, just the daily routines that we've gotten used to. But yeah, this album just hits home, and it feeds the soul because you feel like it's your sword and shield. Like there's others, like you're not alone, like you're not insane, like these things are being thought of elsewhere and they're important. And so there you have it. Those are the top 10 records for us as a couple. And it seems like this particular podcast is going to go on quite long, but let's have fun. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the way that I'm going to be releasing these and keeping them up online. We'll figure it out as we go. Maybe I'll use that stimulus check on making sure that I have unlimited ability to keep these up at least for a month. Now I want to go to her list. I want to go to her list because her list is pretty awesome. And I think we might go somewhat quickly through this, obviously, because I can't tell you what she feels, right? That's for her to be able to express, but she's very shy, and she's shy to be on recording. So she asked me to not involve her in the recording, but she did give me permission to involve her picks. And so starting with number 10. Number 10 is an album that I also enjoy very much, but is not on my list. And this is Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt. And those are, it's It's a great album. It's the one they're known for. Fantastic songs on it, front to back. It's dynamic. It's huge. It's a roller coaster of emotion. And why shouldn't it be? It comes from a very real place. At number 9, if I can find it here real quick. Yes, I have just found it. Number 9 is a band that she actually got me into. I sort of didn't like them, and mostly because I was irritated by one of the singles that got played on K-Rock rotation over and over and over again. And if you're not familiar with K-Rock, that for a long time that was the big alternative rock station here in Los Angeles. Now we have a couple other stations that kind of do the same thing, and one major competitor that's sort of putting into question their status as the station to be, the end all to be all in alternative rock. So this album is So Much for the Afterglow by Everclear. And it's a great album. Very 90s, very much, another LA band, very LA, very 90s. I got to see them live with her at the Summerland tour once, actually. I missed them once. There was a situation where we unfortunately had to miss them, but we did get to see them here in LA, and it was a great show. They're a great band. They sound phenomenal live. If you get a chance and you enjoy 90s music, by all means, go check that out. Go check out Everclear. It's not the same members, but clearly they've done things right. At number 8, she has an album that I won't go into too much because I just praised it in the list before, and that's Relationship of Command. Like I said, this album means a lot to us, and so there it is again at number 8, Relationship of Command. At number 7. Bear with me a second. Here we are. Yes, at number 7. Now this is fun. She put down, and we could have put down any record by this band, and it would have made this list. She put down Rage Against the Machine's Rage Against the Machine, and this is another album that I, of course, love. Absolutely, we love Rage Against the Machine, all their discography. It's all fantastic work. This album, what can you say? Tour de force. It's, again, similar to Evil Empire in the message being absolutely important and a complete experience that you have to check it out if you haven't checked it out. But of course, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably checked it out. So that's number 7, Rage Against the Machine's Rage Against the Machine. At number 6, again, I won't go into this album too much because we've already gone over it and how much we love it. And that's Americana by The Offspring. So that's your number 6 on her list. Moving on to number 5. Again, this is the album that we opened with. Hybrid Theory, Linkin Park. It's an important album for both of us. And of course, it's on her list. At number 4, again, talked about this album previously. It's an important album to both of us. Californication, Red Hot Chili Peppers. At number 3, again, talked about this album in the list. You're starting to notice some patterns, aren't you? And that's With Teeth by 9 Inch Nails. I know for a fact this album's on rotation constantly with her. She loves this album. She loves 9 Inch Nails. That was one of those things that intrigued me early on, the fact that she was very into 9 Inch Nails. At number 2, we just talked about this album. It was number 1 in our couples list. I'm sorry about the proximity effect. I'm moving back and forth. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I hope you're having a lot of fun. I hope this is kind of filling your day and you're enjoying it, doing whatever it is you're doing while you're listening to this. I hope it's bringing some amount of joy into your life. But at number 2, Toxicity by System of a Down. Of course, it's there. She loves System of a Down. Huge Serge Tankian fan. She's the reason that I got to meet him. She's got his solo work and poetry books. Very, very influenced by one Serge Tankian, who's an amazing human being by all means. Number 2 on the list, Toxicity. And of course, at number 1, probably the band that means the most to her. Another band where she has all the records. I just recently found out when we were doing some spring cleaning that she has a DVD of them playing the album front to back in a small room with just a couple fans. It's amazing. So without much further ado, number one on her list is Make Yourself by Incubus. Of course, it's Incubus, and of course, it's an Incubus album on here. Now, real quick before we move on to my list, I want to talk about a couple of her honorable mentions that she put up but didn't really do much with. The first one is White Blood Cells by the White Stripes. Great band, great album. I enjoy it as well. It's an honorable mention. It just quite couldn't break into her top 10. Also, Garbage version 2.0. Again, Garbage is a great band. That's a great album. Butch Vig is a huge inspiration to me, both musically and in terms of recording. And we actually got to meet Shirley Manson a little while back. You can find pictures of us with her on my Instagram at obviously Instagram at Somberamarath, Somberamarath. We got to take a picture with Shirley Manson, got to have a couple words with her. We did that at Girl School, which was held at someplace. I can't remember. Had something to do with bootlegging. It's here in LA. So you might be able to put the pieces together. But yeah, Girl School was awesome. Shirley Manson was awesome. Garbage is great. And so there you have it. And that looks like it does it for her list and her honorable mentions. All right, so let's move on to my list. And my list is extensive because, of course, it is. It'd be a shame if it wasn't. And I think I would feel ashamed of myself if it wasn't. So here we go. Starting with number 10, the album that I claim, I was like 4 at the time, so it's fuzzy, but the album that I claim, and I hold on to this because it's like my earliest memory that I can remember of, just being enthralled with music. And that is Road to Ruin by the Ramones, because of course it is. That album is awesome. It's pure energy. It's fun, it's catchy, it's punk, it's fun, it gets into your veins. Road to Ruin, number 10. Now, at number 9, I have a local band, because of course I do, and I have a band that's appeared on here several times. And of course, that's Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. I won't say much more because you've heard it already. It's just, they came out at the right time. The music was different. The lyrics resonated, and it was enjoyable, catchy, and it just made you feel better about how you felt about everything. At number 8, now this isn't technically, I guess it's an album, but by my standards of what an album is supposed to be and yada, 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 let's not get into a debate. We're having fun. And I'm sure the band would be disappointed that this is the one I chose, but this is the one that means everything to me. And that album is Translating the Name by Seosin. And the reason why is because it's everything I love about punk music, punk-inspired music, punk-adjacent music, and about this, about the Somberamarath brand. It's about that. It's about the early stuff. It's about the get going. It's about when you think you're doing it not great, when you don't think you know what you're doing. And they've said it themselves that they feel they've come far and away as musicians from the era when they wrote this. And yeah, they have. They're phenomenally polished musicians at this point, but this album means everything to me. It is so good. Every song, and the lyrics are cryptic and they keep you coming back and you're trying to decipher them, but these little nuggets make sense, and it feeds your soul, and it's so good, and the riffs are great, and the drumming's fantastic, and the energy and the emotion, and it just it hits everywhere that it should. It's such a great record. I love it. I'm trying not to cuss on here. I'm trying to keep it family friendly, but expletives will eventually slip out. But yeah, I just love it. And I know, and I agree with them. The production value is lacking in the textbook terms, in terms of academic thought. Yeah, it could be better. I'm sure it could be polished. All this stuff. It could be all this stuff. And yet it is perfect because it's raw, because it's there, because it means something. The songs are good. And so the little things that lack in the recording, and they really are very little things, are insignificant. It's the power of the music. And so translating the name has to be in that list, and it is. It's number 8. Moving on to number 7, an album that has a very similar emotional characteristic. It hits home in a very similar way. The energy, the feelings, all that. But it's so much more. And it's an album that's just so raw. And again, I'm using that word. I wish I had better terminology for this, but it's specifically the lyricists here bearing their soul, but it's so honest, and it's so pure, and it's so true, and it's such an emotional roller coaster. Few pieces of art have done this to me, where like they're this thing that tells me about life, that inform me about life. Another one of those, and it's not on here because it's a comedic record, but that would be Christopher Titus's Norman Rockwell is Bleeding. I will play that album until the day I die. It is so important to me and foundational to the way that I see life and the way that I see personal growth. And this album does all that and more. It's Cursive's Domestica. If you've never heard it, please go listen to this. Have a box of tissues ready. Maybe do a little investigation into what's going on with this album before you discard it, or before you even listen to it. If you do that and then you listen to it, I guarantee you, it's gonna hit home everywhere, and it's probably gonna put you in a very emotional state. So be very careful with this album. It's very strong. It's very awesome. It's so good, and it's so important. At number 8, I'm sorry, not at number 8. We just came out of 8 and 7. At number 6 is a local band, because of course it is. And this is a band that I absolutely adore them as musicians, the way they've grown, the music they make, the lyrics, the sounds, the drumming, the bass, the guitars, everything about this band. It's tight, it's strong, it's good, it's clearly been thought out, and it's performed so well. But for me, their early albums will always be their best albums. There's something about the honesty that you allow yourself in youth when you don't think you're being honest that is irreplaceable. You can't match it. You can't imitate it. It's this honesty without trying to be honest. It's this thoughtless honesty. You haven't thought about this enough, but you're saying so much about yourself, even though you don't know that you're saying that much about yourself. And I think they do a little bit of this in this album, but I also think that they were transitioning into a space in their life where they were starting to become these almost modern philosophers that they've become, because they really do make these fantastical albums with these very, very deep topics that they've clearly thought out a lot. But this album, it's just so much energy, it's so much, again, it's all these things I like in music: the energy, the feeling, the not necessarily the complexity, but the originality of the way they're playing their music. And that's Artist in the Ambulance by Thrice. Just front to back, this record, I could play it forever. Just so good, and it hits home so good, and it pumps you up, and then you listen to the lyrics, and that also feeds the soul. And I can honestly say it helped me grow as a human being, helped me see things in a couple of different ways that I hadn't before. Just an important record overall. So coming out of that into number 5, I won't say much about this album other than, of course, it's another local band. There's the theme going on here that I didn't plan for. And this one we've talked about, it's been on the other list. It's, of course, Americana by The Offspring. And why? Because you've heard why. It's a very important record. It's one of the first records I bought myself. Loved it. Played it forever. The CD is somewhere and I don't touch it anymore. I've ripped it and now I stream it. I'm afraid of touching it anymore. I played it so much. Awesome album. Moving on to number 4, if I can find it. See, the thing is, we excuse me for the smack. We wrote these just, stream of consciousness. Just wrote down these albums, wrote them. And then we decided to go back and put numbers on them. So I'm having to skip up and down this list. I probably should have prepared better, but that's the way it's happening. So we are on to number 4. And I won't say, again, too much about this album because it's been on the other ones. But for me, it's Rage Against the Machine's Rage Against the Machine. I was lucky to be introduced to Rage Against the Machine with their first album, and it spoke to me and it revolutionized me. I was already sort of a, kind of politically inclined person. I was already someone who was watching the powers that be, that was, taking them to task on things that they were doing that I didn't agree with, that didn't seem to fit the narrative of what America is supposed to be for all of us. And then this album just absolutely not radicalized, but revolutionized my way of thinking. It was a complete upgrade. It's sort of like if I was already a like a little street racer, I got a NOS injection. So it really just kind of it supercharged everything. Those are two different things. Sorry, car people. But yeah, it definitely supercharged me and led me down some rabbit holes that I needed to explore and listen to and read and think about. So it's a great album, and it's been very influential, and it's helped me grow as a person for sure. At number 3 is another local band. But this is a lesser known local band, and this is a very, very local band. Like, seriously, these guys started off in and still live in, and I have a little bit of a light personal connection. But anyway, they started off in and lived in and kind of went around, went to school around the same area, that I would call my backyard. They're very, very local, like down the street local. And that's Audio Karate. And the album that's on here is Lady Melody. And if you've never heard Audio Karate, please go listen to Lady Melody. If you're on YouTube while you're listening to this, or you're too lazy to go, boot up your streaming service and try to look for them, go to YouTube, check out the video for Jesus is Alive and Well and Living in Mexico. It's such a good song. They're such a good band, but this album is everything. They're so good. This is pop punk that isn't the big pop punk bands at its greatest. It's so good. It's so catchy. It's so riffy. It pumps so well. The beats, the guitar, everything is bright. Everything is energetic. Everything is, just energy and youthfulness and exuberance. But there's some really good stuff being said as well. Very true. A lot of very introspective work went into this album. It's such a great album that deserves so much more recognition. Go check out Audio Karate's Lady Melody. It's one of those records that I can't stop playing. I love it so much. And I'm glad I got introduced to these guys. And funny enough, their bassist got us out of a jam. By us, I mean one of my bands, one of my early bands, got us out of a jam when and I'll take all the heat, and this was me, being that we were broke musicians. I'm sure this will come up later when I get Juan on here. Juan from House of One Studios, who was also in bands with me. He'll be in here eventually, hopefully, once we, get past this whole coronavirus nonsense. But once we get Juan in here, Juan will help us out, and we'll talk about these stories and and the fun stuff that happened back in the day. But anyway, this was one of our, I'll tell you the story real quick, sort of in snapshots. This was one of our early shows. We were broke teenagers in a band. We had barely any of our instrument. Instrumentation. I'll get into that when I have Juan here and we're talking these war stories. But suffice to say that one of the areas we were lacking in the most was a proper PA system, and we were handed a venue, but we weren't handed any equipment. So we had to provide all that. And so in order to have this concert, I had to find a way, and of course it had to be me, I had to find a way to make sure that we had a PA system. And so I had a head, as I recall, had a PA head, but I had no speaker. So I went on eBay and I ordered the cheapest speakers I could find. They're meant to be outside speakers, the kind that you have around your pool and your patio area. You kind of rig to a stereo system. I think that's what they were meant for anyway. And then I don't even remember what I did. I tweaked them so that I can get them plugged in to this this PA head. And we got going with our first song as our cover of Damn It by Blink-182, because of course it was. And we didn't make it all the way through the song. The speakers blew out on us. They died. And the concert would have been over at that point, were it not for the fact that their bassist, of course, like I said, these guys live in my backyard, lived really close by. And he brought us this gigantic 400-watt PA system with these huge speakers. And we were able to continue the rest of our show. And it was so much fun. So thank you for that to... I want to say his name is Justino. I'm pretty sure it's Justino from Audio Karate. We'll get all the details on that sorted out when I have Juan in here, and I'll tell you that story. But again, this album for me is at number 3 in my top 10. Lady Melody. Go check it out if you've never checked it out before. Oh, and they also did another band. I don't know if they're still doing stuff, but that band was called Indian School, and they put out I know at least an EP, and that EP was awesome. So go check that out as well, especially if you're more into the indie-ish kind of Modest Mouse kind of feel. You'll probably really enjoy that album. You'll enjoy Indian School. So let's move on to number 2. This is a band that has been very influential in the way, not just in the music and not just in the style, not in so many ways. I just, the production. Some of my favorite producers are my favorite producers because of the work they did on their record. But also just in lifestyle, their ideas resonated with me. And so I took them to heart, even though I already sort of had those ideas with me. I was already living that way. They solidified it for me. They made it so much easier to live that way. And they're also a California band because, of course, it's another California band. And that album is Sing the Sorrow by AFI. That album was so important to me in my later high school years, when I was having some, really dark times. It's been so good in terms of my mental health. It takes me into this sort of cocoon of like, it's going to be okay. Things are okay. Just feel these vibes. Just enjoy this music. Just, it's hard to explain. It's so poetic. This is, as far as I go, this is Davey Havok's best lyrical work. It's just so strong. And it's some of, Hunter and Jade and Adam's best musical work. Absolutely. Some of their top musical work. Just, the emotionality that they're able to bring to it. But also the technicality. There's a lot of technical stuff in here, and it's so good and it's done so well. And it was so well written and captivating that it really brought in people from all kinds of different genres. I know that now that's sort of a weird thought, that like you're bringing in people who stick to only one genre. Now that it's sort of the cool thing to be into a lot of different genres, and no one takes flack for that too much anymore. But back when these guys were doing their thing in this time, which is sort of mid-career for them now, but this was early in their career then, pretty early anyway. They were sort of drifting into their mid-career for sure. It was so big that they were bringing in people who were into punk and metal and classic rock and all these different subgenres. They were bringing them in, and they were enjoying this record, and it was resonating with everyone. And it's so emotionally charged, and it's so poetic and cryptic, and there's so much energy, and it's so well done, and it's impactful, and in a lot of ways it's very succinct and to the point and strong. It feels like there's no wasted space in this album. And just from a production standpoint, it feels like as close to perfection as this band has ever gotten. And just from a standpoint of what it means to me, it was so powerful. Some of the lyrics in here, I still quote them to people. They become part of my ethos of the way that I live my life. They've been influential from a philosophical standpoint. And so, for that reason and so much more, Sing the Sorrow by AFI has to be number 2. It's if you've never heard it, go hear it. I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, go hear it. It is an event. It is something to bear witness to. It is something to experience once at least in your life. And now, finally, almost an hour in, I know, I might just have to apologize for you for keeping you this long. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're enjoying it. I promise I'll get to the plugins. I'm sure that's more important to you than anything. But number 1, and I say this with absolutely no sarcasm whatsoever. I'm not being facetious. The album that got me through high school, Enema of the State by Blink-182. This album is everything to me. It was handed to me the right time in my life, when I was feeling all this confusion, all this angst, all these different things, and life was complicated, and Blink understood that. The songs in this album understand that. And they also kind of put a positive spin on things. There's fun in this album. There's seriousness in this album. There's heavy topics. There's, jokes in the album. It's an album that kind of just, it understands you when at that age. But these songs go on forever. Like the songs on this album just resonate with you forever. Kids are still listening to Blink-182, specifically this album. It's such a great album. A lot of truth is said in jest. Sorry, that's the truth. And I think the guys in Blink understood this even at that stage in their career. They were very cognizant of the fact that they were doing tongue in cheek, but they also knew that tongue in cheek carried a little more weight behind the facade, and that it was going to be impactful for people. At least I like to believe that they understood what they were doing. And even if they didn't, it did do that. And it allowed me to sort of decompress a little bit through those really hard times, really dark times. And, just everything about this album was handed to me at the appropriate time in my life. And I still play it. I still play all the songs on here. Enjoy all the songs. It's so much fun. It was their definite turn from being sort of just a bunch of guys dicking around to being guys dicking around, but also being very serious musicians, and knowing that their craft was important to people. Whether or not they had come to that realization prior, I don't know, and I won't speculate. Only they can tell you. But for sure, in the music, you can feel it, that they've realized that at some point before putting this out. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 albums. And I'll try to speed through a little bit some of my honorable mentions, just, for you to have. This one, it pains me that it didn't make it, but it's an important album all the same. It's such an important album, but it just kind of didn't eke in. And that's Relationship of Command by At the Drive-In, because of course it is. Aside from that one, we have a long list actually. The next one is Does This Look Infected by Sum 41. Again, their previous album was good. It was fun. It was pop punk. It's all that stuff. It's great. But this one hits home a lot, and it was very important during the high school years, but it's still so very true. And they did it in a different way. I classify this record on the same level as some of the, Rage Against the Machine or System of a Down, or in terms of what the topics they're touching. But I feel like it's more accessible to the youth, and it's more accessible to people in general. They did a great job with this album, and I don't think it gets the recognition it deserves. So there's that. Next up, of course, the first ever album I ever bought, and it's still with me. I still play it. I still love it. Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem. And of course, it's all about the angst. It's all about the angst. But yeah, but the craftsmanship, the rapping, the beats, yeah, it's a great album. It's strong. It's so good. Moving on, Bone Palace Ballad, Grand Coda by Chiodos. This is one of those bands that I ignored forever, and then I actually paid some attention to, and they're fantastic. They're fantastic musicians. This album is some of their best work, and it's so strong, front to back. It's very enjoyable. It's great. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. Great album. The next one on my list of honorable mentions is the album that finally got me to pay attention to Dance Gavin Dance. And that's Acceptance Speech. If you haven't heard it, go listen to Acceptance Speech. If you like Bruno Mars and you like hardcore music, not even hardcore, I shouldn't even say hardcore, but you like heavy music, fast music, technical music, you like the fusion of genres, go listen to Acceptance Speech. So good. So good. The next one is Sex Cells by Black Audio. Why? Because Davey Havok, Jay Puget, of course, and also because it's electronica, but I like it because it was done very well. I don't tend to listen to a lot of electric music, not electric music, more, I guess I should say digital music, dance music, EDM, whatever you want to call it, that sort of music, not too much. Coming up next, a band that means the world to me, and I absolutely love, but they just couldn't eke in Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 by Coheed and Cambria. It's the album that introduced me to them, and it's such a great album front to back. So much fun in this. It's a whole world. You're immersed in it. It was the first time I got to experience that, and it's awesome. And their albums as of recent, especially Ascension and Descension, are just, the top of that experience. But this album introduced me to them, and I still sing along to all the songs on here. And now a band not from the United States, but one that I absolutely love and was introduced to, thankfully, in my youth. They're a band from our cousins to the north. I'm an American, so to the cousins to the north. They're a Canadian band, Billy Talent 2 by Billy Talent. Such a great album. Never heard Devil in a Midnight Mass? Go listen to that now. It is so good. Such a great album. Every track on here is fantastic. I believe I once said that I felt like Billy Talent 2 was what punk bands in the 70s wished they could be. And that might be a little bit of sacrilege in the punk community, but it's so good. It's so great. It's rock and roll. It's punk energy. It's done great. It's fantastic. Go listen to that. Then moving on from there is a band that's not from California, but it's not very far away. Hot Fuss by The Killer. Sorry, I just blew out your ears, didn't I? But yes, I love this album. It's so good. It's so great. It's their best work. I'm sure Killers fans are going to hate me, but I believe it to be their absolute best work. Such a great album. And they completely changed the musical landscape at a time where, you know, rock music was definitely something else. They brought in a new flavor into the world. Moving on from there is a band that I love to hate even now when I recognize their greatness. But this album is, I think, the pinnacle of them and what they do and what they do well. It's 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance. If you've never heard it, go study up on what this is supposed to be, then go listen to it. So good. It's a great album. It's more than just the emo facade that they weren't even trying to put out, to be honest. It just so happened that the aesthetic kind of got intertwined with that scene kid thing that was going on. I shouldn't even say emo. Emo is a completely different thing. I apologize to the purists out there who know what emo is or is supposed to be. Okay, moving on to the second page, because of course there's a second page. At the top, a band that scared me so much when I was first introduced to it. This absolutely, they opened the doors for me in terms of the heavier music and the metalcore, you know, that kind of stuff, the grindcore. They're not grindcore, but they were the gateway band, if you will. I'm sure they'd hate to be called that, but they opened the door and exposed me to a whole different style of, one, vocals, and two, music in general. It completely changed, in my mind, what was possible. And that band is Norma Jean, and the album is, of course, Bless the Martyr and Kiss the Child. If you've never heard it, go hear it. I think it's the best music you can hear in what people were at the time calling screamo. And it's not screamo, but yeah, in terms of just aggressive guitars and guttural vocals, this is so good. It's so very good. And it's a great album, great concepts, great songs. It's just good all around. Moving on to another album that kind of busted open the doors, and a very prophetic album. Another band that's been very influential in my political views and my views on life, my personal philosophy. Sorry, I moved away from the mic. It's The Shape of Punk to Come by Refused. If you've never heard this album, go listen to it. If you're a punk fan, you must. This is required listening. Absolutely required listening. It's a prophetic album. It's a great album. It's one of those albums that's super dynamic, and it's very, very much punk in the truest sense of they were doing what they wanted to do. But yeah, it's strong. It's powerful. The songs are important. Go listen to it. I'm not going to say much more. Moving on from there, it's the band that made me have to look at Taking Back Sunday again. Because as I understand it, I never verified this, but as I understand it, members of this band came from the early incarnation of Taking Back Sunday. And that band is Stray Light Run, and the album is Stray Light Run. Great album, great songs. It very much in that idea of emo that we had in the 2000s, what was mainstream popular called emo. But this is done well and seriously. And, it's introspective and it's universal and it's taken serious. It's serious music, but it's also very enjoyable. So if you enjoyed, the sound of the music that was labeled emo, but you sort of didn't enjoy some of those bands that weren't, you couldn't really take seriously, this is an album that you want to check out. It's very deep. It's a very enjoyable album. It's not Domestica. It's not going to make you cry. But it is gonna make you think. It's a good album. Moving on from there is a band that absolutely should have been in my top 10, and somehow they just didn't. Of course, these albums had to mean something to you. They have to resonate in a way that just nothing else does. And these guys resonate with me more from their technical prowess and from their subject matter. But they don't hit home emotionally so much, if that makes sense. They're more like philosophical masters. They're people that I want to sit in front of and listen to them speak. It's 10,000 Days by Tool. Of course, another Los Angeles band, fantastic band. Tool is a must listen for anyone who's into rock music. You have to listen to Tool. 10,000 Days is a great album to listen to. All their other albums are amazing as well, but this one for sure. Moving on, it's the band that almost gave me a trilogy. They needed to give me a trilogy. They never gave me the trilogy, and I'm still devastated. But this is the album that I just can't stop listening to. Every road trip, it has to be included. And it sucks that it's an honorable mention, but it's an honorable mention. And that's Head Automatica, Decadence. If you've never heard it, please go listen to it. If you like the idea of dance punk, if that idea you enjoy, if you enjoy some of the more electronic yeah stuff, like Zero, for instance, right? If you enjoy that stuff, if you enjoy Daft Punk, if you enjoy punk music, but also electronic dance music, go listen to Head Automatica. Go listen to Decadence. It's such a good album. It's so much fun. Very true, very, very, very honest as well. But yeah, all the elements are there. So good. It's by no means a philosophical album. It's not, revolutionize your thinking, but it's also not bubblegum pop. So there's that. Moving on. And these are the last two. The first one is Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World. This is such a phenomenal album. There's not enough praise I can heap on it. This is, that era of, emotional punk. That's what I'll call it, because I don't even know that I could call it pop punk or alternative rock or anything like that. I feel like it's an evolution of the emo sound. Obviously it's a softening of the aesthetic, but I feel like it's in the same vein as those earlier albums from the 80s and the early 90s. And the topics are very similar, and it's one of those albums that just kind of it feeds the soul, especially when you're in a bad place. It kind of lifts you up. It kind of tells you, hey, things are going to be cool. And I actually can't remember if Jimmy Eat World is Californian or not. They might not be. They might be a Midwestern band, but it's got this just, they're so relatable. It's pure Americana. It really is. Go listen to Bleed American if you never had. Jimmy Eat World, Bleed American. Great album. Must listen. And lastly, an album that pains me is not in my top 10, but it would be sitting right outside of it in any other, situation. And that album is Placebo. Without You, I'm Nothing. I got introduced to Placebo in the weirdest of ways, but the more I got into them, and Brian Molko and Stefan Osdahl, and at the time Steve Hewitt, and now Stephen Forrest, I believe, the more that I realized that this was the best way, the absolute best way to get introduced to them. I got Without You, I'm Nothing in a CD case that someone left on a Greyhound bus, and it was a burnt copy of the album. It just feels so Placebo. Placebo is one of those bands. If we were talking bands, they'd probably be in my top 10. They're actually probably in my top 5, but this album, it's hard to believe it's not in my top 10. It's one of those albums that is so emotionally true. It's important. It's honest. The music is great. It's strong. It resonated with me from the get-go. I put it on once and became a fan forever. It's a great album. If you've never listened to it, go listen to it. It's serious music. Again, it's very heavy. It's very serious. It's very true and raw and honest, but it doesn't bring you down. It's fantastic music that feeds the soul. And Brian Molko's a beautiful person. And clearly he is a person that thinks very deeply about himself, his life, and the world. And it's such a great album. And he was very young when this album came out. So it's impressive that even at that stage in his life, he was already thinking this way. And it's only gotten better with time. If you ever get a chance, I haven't gotten a chance, but I want to so bad, go see Placebo live. And they're an amazing band. I've gotten to see a bunch of their live, DVDs and whatnot through friends and acquaintances or whatever. And it's just so good. It's so good. And that album really deserves to be in my top 10, but it just simply didn't make it. And all their albums would probably be in my top 10 if I allowed myself to do that, but I can't. So there you have it. That's it for that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've had fun until this point. This is a long one. We're deep in. I hope you're cleaning your house or doing something productive, and this is sort of kind of aiding in all that, and you're enjoying yourself. So hopefully you learned something about myself. If you want to connect with me about that or whatever, hit me up on Twitter, at Somberamarath, #Somberamarath. Get my attention. We'll talk music for sure. Let me know, what are some of your top albums? I'd love to hear that. You can also hit me up on Instagram. I'm also Somberamarath. It's not as easy to hit me up on Snapchat, but you could attempt that. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you're thinking of. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I hope that I hear from some of you telling me what are some of the albums that mean the most to you. But with that out of the way, we're going to move on to these free plugins that I've been talking to you about. These are plugins that are free, absolutely free. You can get them now. And they're plugins that I use. These are the plugins that I actually use that I think are great. There are more out there, and eventually I'll probably talk about more. But these are the ones that right now you should probably be checking out, because I realize that some of you are probably at home and you're taking your first steps into this, and you're either not enjoying the plugins you're working with, or they're a little difficult to work with. And I absolutely live by this tenet that plugins should be easy to use. If they're not easy to use, then they're not worth your time, because if something's going to complicate your workflow and you can get that done with something else, you might as well go to something else. Plugins should be intuitive, and a lot of them are great, and they are. And a lot of them are free. So before we get into that, of course, I have to do the I'm sorry, I just blew out your ears again. I have to do the mandatory commercials. And again, sorry for the lick. I don't know why I've gotten into that. Hopefully, when I throw in my Isotope RX plugins, it kind of eliminates some of that. So I got to go into the mandatory ads. And of course, first and foremost, if you enjoy this podcast, if you're having a good time and you can do so, by all means, please, I would appreciate it very much. And of course, it would go to creating more of this podcast. If you would buy me a coffee at my coffee, that's coffee.com/Somberamarath. That's kof-fi.com/SOMBERAMARATH. Buy me a coffee, keep me caffeinated, or rather keep this podcast caffeinated. And it all goes towards, continuing this podcast and all that good stuff. If you can't do that, by all means, pimp me out on your social media. Tell your family and friends. Tell everyone who will listen that they can check me out on, of course, Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, and hopefully soon I'll be on iHeartRadio. And I'm still working on Spotify. So those are coming in the near future, very hopefully. And of course, go check out House of One Studios. That's houseofonestudios.com. For any of your audio, video needs, we're there for you. We'll take care of you. So those are the ads for today. Everything up until now that's an ad correlates with me somehow. So if you're supporting one of those two things, you're supporting me and you're supporting this podcast, and I highly appreciate it. Hopefully at some point in the future, we'll have some sponsorship, and that'll take the burden off of other revenue sources. And I'd like to have some merch at some point. And if you have any thoughts on that, by all means, hit me up on Twitter. Okay, so here we go. Moving on to some free plugins that you can definitely use right now. And they're going to be very good for your production. In fact, some of them are getting used right now, like literally right now. The first one, well, let's go company and then plugins. The first company is Klinghelm. That's Klanghelm. Klinghelm. Klinghelm isn't, as far as I understand it, it's one person. I believe they're in Germany. I might be wrong. But if you Google Klinghelm, they'll be the first thing that pops up. Check them out. Awesome plugins. Love their stuff. Use it all the time. And luckily, they have a couple of free versions. One of them I'm using at the moment. And that plugin is give me a second. It's the MJUC Junior, which is a variable tube compressor. You are actually hearing it right now. If you like the way that I sound, that is that plugin. I discovered it once off a recommendation from Graham Cochran of the Recording Revolution. If you've never checked out his videos on YouTube, by all means go. They're very good. They're going to teach you how to produce your own music. Awesome instructional videos. I love Graham Cochran. Shout out to him. If it weren't for him, I would be so much worse at this than I actually am. And so he recommended their VU meter, which is like $10 American, I think, and it's so worth it. Such a great VU meter. I'm actually using it right now for this production. But then I realized that there was 3 plugins that you could get for free. This was one of them, and I'm currently using it right now to compress my voice so that you have a better listening experience. It's a great little plugin. It's super easy to use. There's literally 2 knobs and a switch. That's it. And it does all the compression you need, and it does it very well. Then there is the IVGI, saturation and distortion. And this is basically just a way to add a little bit of, saturation, distortion, a little bit of grit, a little bit of grime to your recordings, it's very good. I really like it. Anything that could use a little bit of distortion to cut through, this is very good on. A nice little trick is to put it on snares. If your snare isn't cutting through, toss just a little distortion in there and it tends to cut through. So that's a good way to use this one. But it's fun to put it on your voice and have, this gravelly voice, and other stuff, just toss it on there. It's a great little distortion plugin. It's very, very smooth distortion, very enjoyable. Then there's the DC1A Effortless Character Compressor. And that one I have a lot of fun trying to use. I use it a lot less often than the other two. I find that it does some of the same stuff that the IVGI does, but it seems a little more aggressive. And I think I might be wrong, and I really should have gone back and read through his stuff. I believe it's a he. I'm sorry if I'm assuming, but I believe the person behind Klinghelm is a he. Read through the description, and the descriptions are great. By all means, read them. They'll tell you what you're getting yourself into. But I believe it kind of does the same kind of compression that an amplifier that has been pushed a little too hard does. I think that's what's supposed to go on there, and it does it really well, and it's really fun. And there's a lot of variation. There's a couple knobs, and you fiddle with it quite a bit. Moving on to Softtube. Softtube is a very recognized name in plugins. They make a lot of really good stuff. But the one that we're highlighting here, because it's free, is their saturation knob. And the saturation knob, again, it's a way of adding some distortion. But this one I really enjoy because it's just a knob and a switch. And the switch allows you to focus it either on the highs, the lows, or keep it neutral. And then the knob just kind of gives your recording a little oomph. At first, it's kind of like a volume boost, and then it starts to break up. So you can use it both ways. You could give, your sound just a little more pump, a little more volume, or you can, start giving it a little dirt. And I believe it's doing a little bit of compression. I might be wrong, but I believe that it's doing a little compression in the background. Next up is one of my favorite plugin developers, and that is iZotope. And they have a couple of plugins that are free, and keep an eye on them. You might want to follow their social media. Every now and then, they'll have some extra stuff for free, and it's only for a little while, and then it goes away. I know for a fact I have benefited from that in the past, and I picked up a couple of things that now are no longer free or no longer available. Overall, everything they make is so good. I love their stuff. But right now, for sure, you can get their vinyl plugin. It's a plugin that is very self-explanatory. The whole point is to make your stuff sound like it's coming through vinyl. But you can do other stuff with it. You can get experimental. Remember, do more with what you have. I've used it to sort of mangle recording so it sounds like it's on tape and stuff like that. It's very fun. It's a fun little plugin, and it's good to have around stuff like this. There's also the Ozone Imager, and that's I believe it's a spectral imager. It kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with your audio. That one I don't use as much. I've used it a couple times, and because I don't use it so much, I often forget what it does, but it's good to have these utility things there. Then there's the vocal doubler. That one I haven't used, but it's supposed to kind of give you the effect of, I believe, overdubbing your vocals. And it's always good to have something like that lying around. You never know when you might want to do that. You might not be able to do a retake with someone, and there it is. Or you might not want to, and you might want to hear what it might sound like. You toss that in, all that good stuff. Then they have their visual mixer, another one that I haven't used, but that one seems very useful. It kind of lets you arrange your mix in one plugin, so that's worth having, and it's free. And at the moment, if you go through Sweetwater, search up Sweetwater iZotope Elements 9 free, it'll be the first thing that pops up. You can get Elements 9 free, and that's their kind of light version of their mastering software. It comes with 3 modules. I forget specifically which ones, but I know there's a limiter in there. I want to say there's probably an EQ and a maximizer, exciter. I forget. I am going to cough. Pardon me. I've gone over an hour, almost an hour and a half, speaking without getting any water. I'm going to need some water after this. So you can get that now for free. It's very useful. If you don't have the money for Ozone, I highly recommend it. I use Ozone. I actually use an older version of Ozone, 2 older versions of Ozone actually. And I absolutely love Ozone. It's great mastering software. Go get it. It's very useful. And, it gives you all the stuff you need to kind of polish off your song and give it kind of that final varnish before it goes out into the world. And it's great that it's out there for free. Next up is Slate. Slate has their Revival plugin for free. This is another saturator, but this one kind of lets you dial in for bass and for your low frequencies and your high frequencies, I should say, independently. Each one has a knob, and that allows it to be very useful in different ways. I absolutely love putting this on either a bass to give it a little bit of, just a little bit of grit and it comes through, or I really like using it on bass drums as well. Give it some fatness. That also works very well, but it also works if you have a mix bus. In your mix bus, you kind of do your last EQ in there and all that stuff. It allows you to kind of dial up just a little more flavor and energy and whatnot. It's very good there. So that's another way to kind of oomph up your recording. So check that out. Next, from a company that I have a kind of love-hate relationship, simply because they won't release the 6th edition of a piece of software that I absolutely love. It's Native Instruments, and theirs is the Complete Start. And Complete Start has a bunch of cool stuff in it. The one that I got and used and then upgraded is Guitar Rig 5 Player. I believe it comes with 5 amps in there. It's an amp a simulator. You can pick your cabinets, you can pick your microphones, you can kind of pick where they go, and it's really good. It's a very strong piece of software. I feel like they're kind of riding on the fact that it's so strong, and that's part of the reason they haven't kind of released number 6. They should pressure them. If anyone knows them, tell them to release 6. But yeah, really good. If you're short on change, this is a great way to record your guitar with high quality sounding amp. What's the word? God, I got stuck. Amp simulations. That's the Jesus. And it's Easter. I'm sorry. Okay, enough of that. But it's a great set of amp simulations. There's a bass one in there too. It's a great way to get some good guitar sounds for free. Moving on from there, this is a developer that I knew very little about until recently, but they're so good. Tokyo Dawn Records, also known by TDR. They have it's really hard to pronounce, but their Kotelnikov dynamic processor. I use it mostly as an EQ. I'm sorry. No. Sorry. The Kotelnikov is a dynamics processor. I use it mostly as a limiter. That's the situation there. It's a great limiter. It's also great as a compressor, if I recall correctly. I might be wrong, but it'll definitely limit. I know for a fact it will limit, and it's free and it's fantastic. And now moving on to their EQ, and that would be the Nova. The Nova is a fantastic EQ. If you don't like the EQ you're working with, this is free and it's fantastic and it's very, very usable. Go check it out, and you won't be dissatisfied. It's a great EQ. Moving on from there is Thomas Munt. I believe that's how you pronounce it. That's Thomas, of course, Thomas, Mundt. and the plugin is called LoudMax. LoudMax is a brick wall look ahead limiter, and it's great. It's the one I'm using right now. Okay, I'm using this limiter right now on this recording. It's great. It's free. If you need a limiter, this is the one to get. Super simple, easy to use, free. It doesn't require a lot of resources out of your system. Great. Okay, and last up in the free stuff, we'll talk about other plugins in a later episode for sure. But that's the Focusrite Balancer. Right now it's free. And Balancer is kind of this weird little plugin that they worked on with Sonable, another plugin producer. And so what it basically does, more or less, is if you tell it what you're working with and then you let it learn, you kind of play it a little bit of what you're working on, it then kind of does a couple processes for you and kind of tries to spice it up and, automatically edit your audio. So, this is a great way to sort of get started, kind of putting your sound in a nice spot before you do any little tweaks. And for better or worse, I'm putting that plugin, because I haven't used it yet, on this recording. So if you like what it's doing, here's basically what's happening. I have my usual setup on from the last 2 episodes. So if you like the way those sound, that's what's going on there. And then on top of that, I've tossed on the balancer to kind of do its thing over that before it goes to limiting. So whatever it's doing, if you're enjoying the way this sounds, it's doing its thing. But yeah, all of these have videos for them that you can go check out. And there's a bunch of other plugins that I'm probably going to talk about later on. I'm always trying new plugins. I'm always trying the free stuff, because why would you pay for something if you can get a free version of it that works well, right? You should really only be looking at spending your money on the things that matter, that you need, that you can't get elsewhere. And that absolutely do the job that you need them to do. But if you can get away with something that is more cost effective, by all means, use something more cost effective. But yeah, they all have videos on YouTube. You should be able to hear what they do for your audio. And they're all very, very good. They're all very usable. It's why they're on my list. That's why they're being recommended right now. And I've used all of them, even if it was just casually. I've tested all of them. They're all great. They're all stable. They're all fantastic. One last one that just kind of came through today. If you need a reverb, go to Tal, Tal. They have a couple of free plugins. I just picked up the updated version of their Reverb 4. It's a plate reverb. It's very it's very 80s sounding, but it's very, very usable. It's very, very easy to use, and it sounds great. So if you need a reverb, that one I haven't gotten a chance to test out quite as much as I would like, but it's there for you. Check it out. Go have some fun. That's another free one. And they got a couple other plugins that are really good. Their stuff is really, really good. So by all means, use with confidence. All right, guys, I hope you had, I just made a huge mistake. Not just guys, I'm sorry. I know that outside of California, that can get kind of controversial. Sorry, I'm very Californian. All right, everyone. I hope you had a great time hearing, about myself and my girlfriend and our relationship through albums, and that you got some use out of the plugins that I was peddling. I hope you're staying safe and you're well. And I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you on my social media, and for you to hear me on the next episode of the Somberamarath podcast. Thank you, and I'll hear you, or you'll hear me next time. All right, bye.